Take Back the Night is when the campus gets together to condemn sexual violence, especially on our campus and worldwide, and we march to make a statement that we will not tolerate it on this campus, and we will support all survivors of sexual assault regardless of situation and no matter what anyone else says, and that we will believe and support them. Then we are going to have a candlelight vigil to heal, because sexual assault is something we have to get upset about, but then we need to go through the healing process. And since it is a ridiculous amount of women who experience sexual assault in this country, we need to stand up and do something about it. Awesome. Now we're going to have some student performances, and these are a combination of stories, poems, etc. Some of these are written by students themselves, some of them are already published, and some of them are just anonymous ones that we have found in other resources.
So there's no difference between being raped and being pushed down a flight of cement steps, except that the wounds also bleed inside. There is no difference between being raped and being run over by a truck, except that afterwards, men ask you if you enjoyed it. There is no difference between being raped and losing a hand in a mowing machine, except that the doctors don't want to get involved. The police wear a knowing smirk, and in small towns, you become a veteran whore. There is no difference between being raped and being bitten by a rattlesnake, except that people ask if your skirt was short and why you were out anyway. There is no difference between being raped and going head first through a windshield, except that afterward, you are not afraid of cars, but of half the human race. Fear of rape is a cold wind blowing all the time on a woman's hunched back, never to stroll alone a sand road through pine woods, never to climb a trail without that aluminum in the mouth when I see a man coming towards me, never to open the door to a knock without that razor just grazing the throat, the fear of the dark side of the hedges, the back seat of the car, the empty house rattling keys like a snake's warning, the fear of the smiling man in whose pocket is a knife, the fear of the serious man in whose fist is locked hatred.
It wasn't the way he looked at me that I remember, though he was shorter than me, then again most people are. It's not that he smoked Marlboro Menthol Lights or he had a couple drinks in him. It's that he shoved his hands down my pants and said, "I want to be in you." You know how the physical stuff goes away, the bruises, the pain of him shoving me against the dance stage, they're gone. It's his voice, his throaty, accented voice whispering in my ear and making me feel like I had done something wrong. I'm hearing it now. I won't do an impression. My English accent is so poor. But I hear it when I least expect it. I'll be reading. The wind will have shifted, and I'll hear it. I'll be in the grocery store buying chicken. The cashier will say, "$2.50, please." I give her a funny look and blankly hand her the cash. She doesn't understand because he's whispering to me then. My friends told me not to report it. It happened to everyone. I had probably been asking for it. "You're gay," they said. "No one will care." Were they being pragmatic or hateful? Kind or cruel? I don't think I'll ever know. I had an alcohol problem. I was depressed. I never knew why. I know now. He's there, inside me, like he wanted. Alcohol didn't burn him out. The only way to get him out, I'm finding, is to talk about it. So I'm here now, talking about it. It's the only way, I figure, to stop hearing. Talk over it. Thanks, everyone.
We were there. I felt safe. It was actually my roommate's boyfriend was one of the guys there that we were kind of hanging out with. I had known him since my freshman year, and I actually even dated for a year his little brother in fraternity. We were hanging out, dancing, you know, that kind of thing. Party started to kind of die down a little bit, so we decided to go up and hang out in his room for a little while. Had another friend of mine there who had a little bit much to drink, so she was just going to kind of rest it off on the couch up in his room while the rest of us just kind of hung out. So I'm up there and hadn't planned on really drinking a lot more. I'd only had maybe a couple drinks, you know, some of the garbage can punch, that kind of thing. But he offered me another drink, and I didn't really want to drink a whole lot more, but he's basically like, well, you know, just one shot, no big deal, that kind of thing. He told me he was giving me a shot of vodka, but it was actually Everclear. He then tried to give me another shot, and when I finally told him no, he kind of let go a little bit, but pretty much about maybe 20 minutes after that, I was starting to get really tipsy, needed to lay down. I was really lightheaded, that kind of thing. And so he said, okay, well, I got to get a little bit later, so sleep it off for a few minutes, walk you home in a little bit when you feel a little bit better. That was probably about maybe midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. The next time I woke up and looked at the clock, he was raping me, and it was maybe 1, 2 in the morning. I couldn't move, couldn't talk. My friend was passed out on the couch about 4 feet away from me, and I couldn't even yell out to her for help. Pretty much, I blacked out after that. I don't know whether it was just to try to keep the experience out of my mind or what, but I remember waking up again at about 5 o'clock in the morning with this ultimate panic of just needing to get out of there. So I woke my friend up, we went home, and I went to sleep. That's when I noticed bruises and other things like that, and pretty much at that point I had confirmed my worst fears of what I remembered had actually happened. So at that point, when you kind of finally make the decision that something needs to be done, my only thoughts were to go and do something to take care of myself. But I didn't know what to do. I know we had gone through freshman, orientation on what to do and things like that, but, I really either never paid attention or just really never thought that it would be something that I would ever have to deal with. So I actually got on the internet and looked up some of the information to figure out, what to do and who to talk to, and called up one of the hotlines. They basically told me to go immediately to the hospital, at which point I basically made the decision that if I'm going to go to the hospital, I've got to use my insurance. My parents are going to find out about this at some point. So I've either got to call and tell them, or they're going to find out later. So I made one of the hardest phone calls I think I've ever made in my life, and called my mother and told her what happened. She had a hard time believing me, kept asking me if I was sure. And basically at that point, we both just kind of broke down crying. And I went and got one of my friends that was living in my dorm with me at the time, and she went with me to the hospital, where I went and got checked out. I really am happy that there are this many people here that support survivors and that sort of thing, so that, hopefully other women can come out and have the same kind of results. It's a hard road after doing something like that. So if you're, a friend of anyone who's ever gone through something like this, I know you know that, there's a lot of things that change about you when you go through something like this. I had a hard time with relationships for years afterwards. Luckily now I'm getting married this summer, so
Woo!
but it was hard getting, I guess, back on the bandwagon, so to speak, because especially with acquaintance rape situations, which is generally, I think, correct me if I'm wrong with statistics and stuff, but mostly what happens on college campuses. So more than the actual physical aspects of what happens, there's a lot of emotional trauma that happens when it's someone that you know and that you thought you trusted. So one thing I would say is just be really patient, and try to be supportive. Understand that there's a lot of things that they've got to be able to get straight in their head and that sort of thing before they can move on and put everything past them. So the best thing that you all can do is support the programs on campus. Try to help with education, teaching other people about what it is to be a survivor, and that people always use the word victim, but I really hate that word, because that's how you feel when it happens, and only until you can get past the point of all those feelings that make you feel like a victim do you become a survivor. And so if you start using those kind of terms and thinking about people that have gone through something like this from the very beginning, then you can kind of help them along the way to feeling that way. So thank you all very much for being here for this. Please feel free.